So I'm 23. I'm from the UK. I run a faceless YouTube channel called Wi-Fi Uni with 25,000 subscribers, and it makes me around 2 grand a month. And today, I want to do something a bit different, which is look back at the first 100 videos I made and talk honestly about what I learned from making them. Because I think there's a version of this conversation that's just a list of tips, and a version that's an actual reflection on what changed between video 1 and video 100. And I want to try and do both, because I think the list is useful, but the reflection is what makes the list mean something. Please excuse this AI slop voice. I promise the value in this video is worth it. So let me start with the reflection piece first, because I think it sets up everything else. And what I want to try and convey is just how different video 100 felt to make compared to video 1. Not in terms of the production, although that changed too, but in terms of how I thought about what I was doing and why. Video 1, I was essentially just trying to not embarrass myself. Like, the goal was just to make something that was watchable and get it uploaded. And the content of the video itself was almost secondary to the fact of making it and posting it. And I think that's probably normal for a first video, but it meant the thinking behind it was shallow. I hadn't really figured out what the channel was for, or who it was for, or what made a good video in this specific niche. I was just making a thing and hoping it was okay. Video 100 felt completely different. Like, by that point, I had a clear sense of what the channel was, who watched it, what they wanted from it, what made them click, what made them stay, what made them subscribe. And all of that knowledge changed how I approached every decision in the video, from the title to the thumbnail, to the hook, to the pacing, to the outro. And the video was better not because I'd learned some secret technique, but just because I'd made 99 videos before it, and each one taught me something small that accumulated into a significantly better understanding of what I was doing. And I think that's the meta lesson before I get into the specific ones, which is that the first 100 videos are essentially a paid education in YouTube. You're paying with time rather than money, and the tuition fee is all those hours making content that mostly doesn't perform that well. And what you get in return is a level of understanding of your specific niche and your specific audience that you genuinely cannot get any other way. So the first specific lesson, and this is probably the one that changed how I thought about the channel most fundamentally, is that the title and thumbnail matter more than the video. And I want to be careful about how I say this because I don't mean the video doesn't matter. It does. But what I mean is that a great video with a bad title and thumbnail will get almost no views, and a decent video with a great title and thumbnail will get significantly more views than the great video. And that asymmetry is something I didn't understand at all when I started. The title and thumbnail are the only things a viewer sees before they decide whether to click, and that decision takes about half a second. And all the work you put into scripting and editing and making the video genuinely good happens after that decision. So if you don't win the click, you never get to show anyone how good the video is, and the click is won or lost entirely on the title and thumbnail. I spent my first 20 or 30 videos making content without really thinking about this, and the click-through rates on those videos were low, and I assumed the problem was the content, and I kept trying to make better content, when actually the problem was that nobody was clicking to find out how good the content was, because the thumbnail wasn't compelling and the title wasn't specific enough. When I started studying thumbnails properly, looking at what was performing in my niche, and figuring out what those thumbnails had in common, and getting more deliberate about titles, the click-through rates improved, and the videos started doing better numbers even when the content itself wasn't dramatically different. The second lesson is that the hook is almost as important as the title and thumbnail. And what I mean by hook is the first 30 seconds of the video, because YouTube is watching how quickly people drop off. And if a significant percentage of your viewers are clicking off in the first 30 seconds, that tells the algorithm the video isn't delivering on the promise of the title and thumbnail, and it stops pushing it. And I made a lot of videos early on where the first 30 seconds were basically just scene setting. Like, I'd spend half a minute explaining what the video was going to be about before actually getting into it. And that's the wrong order, because by the time I got to the actual content, a lot of people had already left. The fix was to get to the point faster. Like, start with the most interesting or most useful part of the video, rather than building up to it, and treat the hook as the thing that earns the viewer's permission to go deeper, rather than as a warm-up before the real content starts. The third lesson is about consistency of format, rather than consistency of topic. And what I mean by that is early on, I was quite varied in how I structured videos. Sometimes I'd do a listicle, sometimes a tutorial, sometimes a more essayistic thing. And I thought variety was good because it kept things fresh. But what I noticed was that the videos that performed best tended to follow a similar structure. And the reason for that, I think, is that viewers who find one video they like want to know what to expect from the next one. And if every video is structured differently, that expectation is harder to build. When I settled into a more consistent format, same general structure, same kind of intro, same kind of pacing, same kind of outro, the subscriber retention improved because people knew what they were getting. And the new viewer who found one video and liked it was more likely to watch another because the experience felt familiar. The fourth lesson is that search-driven content outperforms algorithm-driven content at a small channel size. And what I mean by that is early on, I was making content that I thought was interesting or timely, like I'd make a video about something that was getting talked about in the AI space that week, hoping the algorithm would push it to people who might be interested. And that strategy mostly didn't work, because the algorithm doesn't really push content from small channels to new audiences. It needs a lot of data about who your viewers are before it starts doing that. What worked better was making content that answered specific questions people were already searching for, like going into YouTube search and typing keywords related to my niche, and looking at what people were searching for, and then making videos that clearly answered those searches. Because those videos get found by search even when the algorithm isn't pushing them. And the viewers who find them through search are highly relevant because they were actively looking for exactly that information. The fifth lesson is about pacing, and this is one that took me a while to figure out. And what I mean is the pace at which the video moves, how quickly I get through points, how much time I spend on each thing, and the balance between being thorough and being unnecessarily slow. Early on, my videos were too slow. Like, I'd spend too long on context setting and not enough time actually getting into the substance, and the average view duration on those videos reflected that. People were dropping off in the middle because the pace wasn't holding their attention. The fix was to be more ruthless about cutting anything that wasn't directly useful. Like, if a sentence wasn't adding something, then it didn't need to be there. And to trust the viewer to keep up rather than over-explaining every point, because the viewer in this niche is smart and motivated, and they don't need as much hand-holding as I was giving them early on. The sixth lesson is that volume compounds in a way that individual video quality doesn't, and I've touched on this in other videos, but I want to make the point specifically in the context of the first 100 videos, because I think it's the most important thing I learned. If I'd spent the same amount of time making 20 really polished videos instead of 100 decent ones, the channel would be significantly smaller, and the income would be significantly less, because each video is both a piece of content and a data point that helps the algorithm understand the channel, and a data point that could be the one that introduces someone new to the channel, and a piece of the back catalog that builds the library that converts a one-time visitor into a subscriber. And the quality of each individual video improved as the volume increased anyway. Like, video 50 is better than video 10, not because I spent more time on it, but because I'd learned so much from making the first 49 that the improvement happened naturally. And I think that's just how skills work. They develop through repetition rather than through deliberate study, and the 100 videos gave me the repetitions I needed. The seventh lesson is probably the most uncomfortable one, which is that most of the things I was worried about early on turned out not to matter. Like, I spent a lot of time in the first 20 or 30 videos worrying about things like whether the voiceover sounded too robotic, whether the editing was polished enough, whether the channel banner looked professional, whether I was covering the right topics in the right order. And most of those things turned out to be almost completely irrelevant to whether the videos performed well. What mattered was whether the title was specific and searchable, whether the thumbnail made someone want to click, whether the first 30 seconds gave the viewer a reason to stay, and whether the video actually delivered useful information in a clear and honest way. And none of those things required the level of polish I was trying to achieve early on, And the time I spent on things that didn't matter was time I could have spent making more videos, which would have actually moved the channel forward. And the eighth lesson, and this is the one I want to end on because I think it's the one that surprised me most, is that the audience is smarter than you think and more forgiving than you think at the same time. Smarter in the sense that they can tell when content is genuinely useful versus when it's just going through the motions. And they respond to honesty and specificity in a way that you can feel in the comments and the watch time and the subscriber retention. And trying to fake that doesn't work. Like, viewers in this niche have seen enough content to know the difference between someone who actually knows what they're talking about and someone who's just presenting information they found elsewhere. And more forgiving in the sense that they don't actually care about the production quality as much as you think they do. Like, if the information is good and the presenter is honest, the viewers will deal with a slightly imperfect voiceover, or a simple edit, or a thumbnail that isn't perfectly designed. Because what they came for is the information, and if the information is there, they're happy. And I think those two things together, the intelligence of the audience and their forgiveness about production, point to the same conclusion, which is that the thing to invest in is the thinking behind the content, rather than the presentation of it. And that's a lesson that took me 100 videos to fully believe, but that I'd pass on to anyone starting now, so they don't have to learn it the slow way. If you want more direct help building something like this, I do have a school community linked in the description. There's one-to-one feedback available depending on which tier you join. No pressure at all. Cheers for watching.